Let me make one thing clear. Right now, Gambit are the best CSGO team in the world. They've proved that fact over the course of 2021 with their insane play, culminating with them annihilating Na'Vi at the recent Blast Pro Series Spring Finals. From an academy roster with little expectations to the #1 team in the world, damn, it must feel good to be Gambit. If YouTube was a sentient voice thing, I'm picturing Scarlett Johansson from Her. Would it just be confused all of the time, asking you to like the video and subscribe to the channel constantly? Would it be hitting that notification bell, making the dinging noise because it knows no other existence? I have no idea. Just a thought. Since the beginning of the year, hell, dating back into 2020, Gambit has quietly built one of the most consistent resumes in all of Counter-Strike. It's the type of consistency that saw them win Intel Extreme Masters World Championship back in February, run through the competition at Blast Spring Showdown in April, take a cool second place at both ESL Pro League and DreamHack Masters Spring and May, before straight up dominating the competition at Intel Extreme Summer in June. Talk about a hell of a 5 months. And really, if you take a look at that second place finish at ESL Pro League, it happened against Heroic's superstar Cadian, who pulled off one of the nastiest clutches in all of CSGO history. So really, not much to be mad at there. Then this past weekend, they capped all of that off by running through every single team at the Blast Spring Finals, wiping the floor with Na'Vi and Simple to take home an easy $225,000.
But unable to find an angle just yet. There's his kill to Boomich, and the second onto Bit. Shiro connects to Simple. Perfecto, not able to clutch. Simple falls silent, and he tries to close that distance into Shiro. Opper versus Opper. Prodigy versus God. He sees it at a distance, and Nathany's gonna take it. It is Gambit as your Blast Premier Spring Finals Grand Champs.
Now, the Counter-Strike landscape that Gambit has been dominating for the better part of this year it's a weird one. See, as many of you already know, when the pandemic started back in March of 2020, it forced CSGO online. No more LANs, no more in-person trash talking, you get the point. This led to the narrative that this online era of Counter-Strike needed an asterisk next to it because a lot of people believed there was no definitive way to prove who the consensus #1 best team in the world was. It's something people talked, vented, and argued about for pretty much an entire year. Shit, we had conversations all the time about what the hell this online era meant. And to be fair, for a while, shit was weird.
The top 5 teams in the HLTV rankings were constantly shifting. For a minute, it seemed like Big was making a run for the top spot. Then it was Heroic. Even G2 looked to be making a comeback. On top of that, both Astralis and Vitality were struggling to retain their dominance. The point is, there was no consistency. It never felt like there was a consensus #1 best team in the world.
But the version of Gambit, helmed by the veteran Hobbit, that just beat Na'Vi at the Blast Spring Finals, have been so consistently well-rounded that they've effectively killed off this online era argument altogether. Because once you've beaten top 5 teams multiple times in a row, which Gambit has, that whole, but it's online, so we don't actually know who's the best, can quite simply get There was even a joke heading into the lower bracket finals between Na'Vi and G2 that both these insanely talented teams were just ultimately playing for second place. That said, even with Gambit expected to win it all, Simple was still putting on a show.
Goes down to Electronic. That is an important kill, but there's only 20 seconds here. Next up with the headshot, Nico to follow, and this is looking so crisp right now. They had the call. That Molotov from Nexa is everything they needed. Simple, though. No, what? He's turned around. He's got 3 kills in the space of a second. And now it's a one-on-one. He's going to go for the bomb plant. He's inside of the smoke, and Amanek, he's got the pistol out. He knows. But Simple's escaped out through the smoke. Not dead yet. Comes back for a little bit more. This can't happen. He's on the bomb. He's going for the full defuse. Ice cold from Evidence. Oh, no! He takes him down anyway, the Undertaker! Unbelievable!
Now, if you're a CSGO head, you probably remember the major winning Gambit roster that Hobbit was a part of back in 2017. They pulled off an incredible comeback against Immortals at PGL Krakow. The roster was stacked, it was f***ing great, and honestly, a little unexpected.
Gambit have done it!
But let's face it, that era and that roster, which is enshrined in the history of CSGO, has long since ended. Adren had a few moments with a Vanguard and Jame time, Zeus palled around with Na'Vi until he retired in 2019, and even Hobbit, the stalwart leader of this insanely talented 2021 roster, hit a few rough patches after leaving Gambit back in 2018. But then, in somewhat of an unusual move, Gambit Youngsters, which is essentially Gambit's academy team, re-signed Hobbit back in July of 2020 and formed a 6-man roster. Gambit have since trimmed its squad down to a 5-stack, but at the time, this was right at the height of teams experimenting with that 6th-man position. And although Gambit Youngsters managed to crack HLTV's top 30, coming in at 28th that same month, they were still a relatively unproven roster, now with a veteran leading them. In fact, that Youngsters team made such a good impression that they were promoted to Gambit's official roster in October of 2020.
What makes these guys so impressive to watch is that they don't play in the way that you expect. Of course, they have superstar potential in Axel and Shiro, but primarily it's all about patience, working together as a team, forcing plays to happen on their terms, and sticking to the fundamentals of Counter-Strike.
Which is something that CSGO personality Professor talked about on the HLTV Confirmed podcast about a month ago.
It's not like they're just running around and shooting people in the head, or they have like gimmick strategies or like some weird execute no one saw. It's just like playing fundamental CS better than all of these players that have been around for so long.
And this new look Gambit roster with Hobbit at the helm was building momentum smack dab in the middle of this online era that we just talked about. So while they're getting the credit that they deserve now, at the time when everyone was bickering about what win means what, Gambit's campaign for #1 team in the world was underappreciated. And it's easy to say now, based off of recent performances, that this was somehow expected, but let's not get it twisted. Of course, this was not expected. You're talking about pairing a former major winner who'd been playing in relative obscurity for the last few years with a bunch of young guns who weren't really on anyone's radar yet. Of course, now it's obvious that Gambit should be called the #1 team in the world, but I'd struggle to believe anyone who said that they saw this coming. So I guess the question now is, where do we go from here? Well, with Sweden losing its fucking mind over hosting Dota's TI-10, or I should say rather not hosting it, concerns have been raised about the viability of the PGL Stockholm Major scheduled to happen later this year in October. If you missed that news, yeah, Valve put out a lengthy statement about the Swedish government failing to recognize esports as anything less than legitimate, which honestly has such a mid-2000s vibe to it. Regardless, whether or not it's in Sweden or another European country amenable to all of the tourism dollars that CSGO will bring to the table, you just know that Gambit are going to put on a show. And I'm not one to make bold predictions, or predictions at all really, but it's hard to imagine, given the current landscape of Counter-Strike and the consistency with which Gambit has dominated the competition, that performance will be anything less than outstanding. But at the same time, just to bring it full circle with this what the fuck is going on with online CSGO argument, this young Gambit roster have never played at a major LAN before. So the question is, can they keep up this consistency and silence whatever doubters might remain, or are they going to fall victim to this online asterisk theory? I honestly have no idea, but here's hoping they win big. Simple was promoted to Gamber. Who is Gamber? Poscast? He was on the Poscast. That's a little long, but I almost had it.